Okay, hello and welcome to SDE and welcome to the SDE Teachers 2017-2018 school year online orientation. First of all, I'd like to say a big welcome to all of you joining us this year from the whole team at SDE. This is a fairly recent picture that was taken with the team at the office in Shenzhen. As you can see, we've got about 40 people here. I think since this picture was taken, the team has actually grown considerably, and we also have positions elsewhere in China now. And I know that a lot of people in our team will be looking forward to seeing all of the new faces, all of the new teachers joining us this year. Before we go any further, I should introduce myself. I'll be the presenter for this orientation. My name is Alistair Brightwell. I've been with SDE for 3 years. 2 of those years I spent working as a foreign teacher in Shenzhen. And during that time with SDE, I learned a lot about the company and got to know people in the office. And from cooperating a lot with the company and with the office in Shenzhen, I became a manager around this time last year. And so I've been working in management in the company for the last year, helping with things like lesson observations and training and intercultural issues and the like. I have about 6 years experience in China. I've worked in the north near Beijing for several years, and I've been in Shenzhen now for 3 years, all of that time with SDE. In my time working with SDE, I've also become a qualified TEFL in China instructor, which has helped me with the training that I've been able to provide to teachers working here. I'd say I have a pretty deep understanding of problems that foreign teachers will have teaching in China, and also communicating, getting on with their schools, and generally just living and surviving here. Okay, that's a little about me. Next, I'd like to introduce some of the main leaders of the company who I think it's important that you know about, just in case you see them walking around the office. This is Sharon Lee. She's our chairman and the founder of SDE International. Sharon's been with Citigroup. She's also worked with the Shenzhen Foreign Affairs Bureau. She's spent a lot of time strengthening communication and cooperation between China and the US, and since founding SDE in 2004, she's been dedicated to bringing international knowledge and expertise to education in China, and really wants to achieve the same kind of advanced levels of education in China that she's seen and experienced and learnt about in her time in the US. Next, we have our CEO, Adam Zhang. Adam is a native Chinese national, just like Sharon, and he's an experienced manager who's worked in multinationals in the US and South Africa. He joined last year to lend his great experience in what is a very exciting period of fast growth for SDE. With his management experience and 3 years leading a global enterprise university, I think Adam's experience is extremely well suited to a growing company like SDE, particularly in this area of international education that is being targeted at the moment. And I'll go into more detail about our business and how we are growing all over China very shortly. So, welcome to SDE. First, I'm going to introduce SDE. We're going to look at the growth that SDE is involved in right now, how things are really moving very quickly for the company, the organization, how we're set up, and then what sort of business we're involved in, and finally, areas for personal development. I think I'm a good example of someone who has benefited from the recent growth in SDE. I was able to move from a position of being a teacher, bring my knowledge and experience from working in China into the office, and hopefully help a lot of people and help the company to grow. And so we'd really like to emphasize that aspect of the company in this section about personal development. Once I've finished that introduction to SDE, then we'll talk about the overview of this entire online orientation schedule, all of these videos, and give you an idea of what's coming up. So I'll briefly touch on what the purposes and expectations of these videos are, what the schedule is going to be, and any contacts that you might need during this time if you have any questions, or if any of this raises anything that you really need to know more about. So, SDE's growth. This is Shenzhen. So this is really the starting point for SDE. Back in 2004, SDE was founded in Futian, and in 2013, SDE got its first batch of public school positions in Futian and brought in over 30 teachers to fulfill those positions. Then the following year, the number of positions that they had in Futian increased, and that's when I arrived and started teaching in Futian with SDE. And again, the following year, the number of teachers increased again, until last year when things really increased up until where we are right now. We finished the most recent semester with over 150 teachers, and we were in Nanshan, Longhua, Longgang, Dapeng, Guangming, Bao'an, Pingshan, Yantian, and Luohu, all of the 10 districts in Shenzhen. And we continue to have teaching positions in all of these districts, whether it be in a public, private school or training center. At the same time, SDE has been looking to expand throughout China. If we've got a product that works in Shenzhen, then why can't we get that to work in Chengdu, in Beijing, in Wuhan, and more recently in couple of the cities that are closer to Shenzhen, in Dongguan and Zhongshan. So we have these positions in other cities in China, so there's potential for you to stay with us and go and work in other areas of China. And all the time we have sales members traveling all over China looking for new opportunities for us to spread our model in China, and hopefully we can all benefit from that in the future. To give you an idea of the growth, obviously we described in 2013, 14, 15 how there are only a few more teachers coming to work for SDE every year, and then we've seen this explosion through 2016, 2017, and the company's goal right now is to accelerate that even more and to see a growth to 300 in the coming year, 500 next year, and even 1,000 in 2019. So the ambition of this company is clear, and the potential for people coming to join us is just as clear. I think, this is a company that really wants to go somewhere and to create a national brand that's recognized all over China. Next, the organization of the company. This should give you some idea of how things are set up. I introduced Sharon Li before and Adam Zhang in the position of chairwoman and CEO. We also have a research institute which is associated with the company. This is a kind of NGO, non-government organization that helps us to investigate different opportunities, to attend certain conventions and communicate with the government and so on. Over here we have Highland, which is our American branch, which is helping us with recruitment from America. And then you can see we've split Shenzhen into the east of Shenzhen and the west of Shenzhen, because we are expecting to have over 300 teachers here at some point in the new school year. So it's more effective to split our schools up into smaller divisions. Then we have Beijing, which has a separate business unit. We have an office in Beijing. And over here we have education development, which is another side of our business that I'll go into later on. So those are our business divisions. Down here we have what are effectively different kinds of supports. The largest support section here is the International Talents Division, and that's where you are. You are one of our international talents, one of our foreign teachers who adds a great deal of value to the company and helps us to satisfy the demands of these business divisions, which is where we face schools and students and clients looking for education solutions. So a little bit more about the business. Roughly, it can be broken up into two main areas. One is education development, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a second. And the other is international talents, which is where we are. You and I, we are all part of the International Talents Division. And we're going to go into that in a lot more detail in these orientation videos. So first, a quick description of the education development side of the business. Education development can be broken down into 5 main components. Those being study abroad, so the opportunity to go and study in another country. This is for Chinese students traveling to countries like America and the UK to benefit from the education options that they have there. In a similar fashion, there are summer camps that allow students to either travel within China or travel to foreign countries to learn about those cultures and to improve their English skills and to study with other students from other countries. Here we have the international curriculum. This is a program to build a set of teaching resources and teaching plans and a curriculum that will encourage students to use more creative thinking and problem solving and really to develop their own personal. Here we have the international curriculum, which is a project to develop a curriculum that leads students to improve their critical thinking and also to improve their own personal development in general. So bringing in international ideas for education that can assist students in public schools and private schools to achieve these goals in the classroom. Next, we have training. So within our own offices and training centers, we can provide certain forms of training with things like IELTS, TOEFL, and SAT and SSAT for Chinese students who are obviously looking to study abroad or are just looking to improve their English in general. Finally, we are exploring the area of school management, so recruiting people who can manage schools, obviously private schools and potentially some public schools. We're looking for people with the experience to operate as vice principals or even principals. Next, we have the International Talents Division. The International Talents Division is led by the ITD head, who at the moment is Adam, acting in this role. Then it's broken down into two main areas. One area you will already be quite familiar with is the Recruitment and Visas Department. So you will have had a recruiter who's been helping you to work through your visa application and you're joining the company, signing a contract, and etc. Then once you get to China, or at least from now onwards, you will be dealing with the Foreign Teachers Department. So this is the group of managers who will be taking care of you and your life in China and your teaching in China. And that's a pretty good way to separate out the two management departments of the Foreign Teachers Department. The Foreign Teachers Management will focus mainly on life with the school, and the Academic Management team focus mainly on teaching with the school. Next, your opportunities for personal development with SDE. Right now, you're a foreign teacher. You'll be working in a school. Of course, you'll have interaction with the SDE office. And there are a number of different paths you could go on to develop with SDE. Firstly, with your school, after you've got a certain amount of experience in certain subjects, you might be able to qualify as a subject teacher at your school. And in fact, this year we'll be recruiting several teachers to work as subject teachers. Obviously, this would see an increase in your salary and would also give you greater scope to control your curriculum and what you're teaching in the classroom, and greater opportunities to improve your educational skills and experience. From there, we will also be identifying teachers with exceptional experience teaching in subjects who can become senior subject teachers, and from there onwards potentially work as vice principals in Chinese schools, which might seem like a mind-blowing idea, especially once you started to work in a Chinese school. You might feel that as a foreign teacher there's a bit of a glass ceiling, that there's nowhere to go up as a teacher. I've felt that myself in the past, but now I've joined SDE, I can see that there are lots of paths for you to move upwards, and this is one of the new areas where China is opening up, especially in Shenzhen. They're opening up to the possibility that foreign teachers could bring their expertise to China and work side by side with Chinese teachers to do more than just be a foreign teacher. There are other positions that may be available working with schools or working with other kinds of private training centers or international schools. Sometimes schools are looking for assistants to work with their principals or vice principals. Sometimes there are companies that work in business education or enterprise training, or this kind of thing. So keep your eyes and ears open. You may discover that there are opportunities to still work in education but not work perhaps in a public school or in a traditional school setting. But however, still using your educational skills of presentation or tutoring to benefit adults or children or whoever it may be. And there could be, for example, teacher training opportunities, training our teachers or training Chinese teachers. The next area to look at is moving into positions with SDE. Obviously, some of you may have been recruited by Tim. Tim is a former teacher with SDE who moved into a recruitment position late last year. So he's an example of how you can move into the office and find new experiences working in education, but perhaps not working as a teacher. Employee relations. We're very keen to engage our teachers to understand what problems they're having when they're working in China, when they're living in China. And part of this is employee relations. This was a very large part of the job that I've done in the last year. It's something I find quite interesting, and it was a big motivation for me joining the company because I know how important it is to engage with teachers, to understand their problems, and to help them to understand how best to resolve those problems. If this is something you're passionate about, again, keep your eyes and ears open and see what possibilities, what opportunities there are to move into this kind of role. And over here we have an academic consultant. I've put this across the middle line here because it's someone who really will be moving between SDE and the school sides of things. This is a part-time role for experienced foreign teachers who are interested in supervising and mentoring other foreign teachers on how best to teach at their schools. So this will involve things like lesson observations, meeting with teachers, doing some training with them as well. Above these roles, there'll be certain managerial positions. So there could be managerial positions in recruitment, employee relations, and academic consultancy or academic supervision. And that's currently where I'm sitting right now. We'll come to that in more detail later. And then above that, senior managers and directors. So really, the sky is almost the limit for people joining our team. If you've got the capability, if you've got the experience, and you've got the drive, possibilities really are quite broad with SDE right now. You just remember that only a few slides ago I was saying 1,000 foreign teachers by 2019. If that's going to happen, then we're going to need to bring more and more foreigners into our team to help us bring foreign experience and foreign perspective, because this company is all about international education, and that means bringing in international ideas and experience. In the final section of this video, we're going to look at the online orientation overview. So namely, the purpose and expectations of this online orientation, the schedule for the orientation, a detail of everything that we'll cover, and what contacts you might want to get in touch with during the orientation process if you have any questions before you come to China, for example. So what are our purposes and expectations? First of all, we want you to understand SDE. So know how we work, know how to work with us, and know how we can support you to do a great job in China and hopefully to grow with us. Next, prepare for life in China. Perhaps this is the first time you're coming to China, but even if it isn't, there are certain things that we can prepare you for, certain things we can let you know that are going to make your life a little easier when you come over here. And perhaps there are things you can bring with you, or there are certain ways in which you can prepare that are going to make everything that little bit easier and allow you to focus more on your teaching. Also, we're going to help you to prepare for teaching. So give you an understanding of what our standards and expectations are in terms of teaching, and give you some examples of what is best practice. Expectations. We want to make responsibilities clear. We want to know everybody. We want everybody to know what they're expected to do and how they can contribute to the success of the company and to their own success working in China with SDE. Also, we want everyone to be sensitive to the culture here and also sensitive to each other's cultures. So there'll be quite a bit talking about how cultural differences between Westerners and Chinese people can cause friction, can cause misunderstandings. And I think we need to place this cultural sensitivity at the center of everything that we do when we're bringing foreigners to work in China. Also, I think it's important to have some clear expectations about how to deal with problems of health, safety, and law, because sometimes things can go wrong. And in these situations, having bottom lines, having clear expectations can make everything a lot clearer, a lot easier to deal with. And with large numbers of teachers coming to join us, there's always a possibility, a very high likelihood, that one or two people are going to have some serious problems. So we want to prepare you so that you know what the best thing to do is to get the best possible outcome when anything goes wrong. Here we'll have a look at the online orientation schedule. We're looking to start with all of our teachers watching this first group of videos in the second week of August, from the 7th to the 11th. So obviously you're watching this video now, the Welcome to SDE. Next, we'll be talking about our foreign teachers management system, then academic management, and then a whole raft of videos talking about issues you may have in China. So getting ready to fly out, book your tickets, things you might want to prepare, issues you could have with laws and political sensitivity in China, health and safety issues in China, cultural challenges, this is a very important one, and a overview of our code of conduct, how we expect our teachers to behave when they're working, living, teaching in China, in Shenzhen. In the second week, from the 14th to the 18th, we'll go more into teaching. So a background of education in China, we'll talk about teaching in Chinese schools. Then we'll look at SDE style lesson planning. So what are our expectations for lesson plans to be used in schools when teaching for SDE? Our criteria for when we come to observe your lessons. So what our expectations are, what we want to see in your classes with your lessons, what we want to see you doing at school. And then we'll throw in some demo videos. So some examples of experienced SDE teachers teaching at schools in Shenzhen. Finally, we'll have a quick video about first days in China that will summarize roughly what you can expect from the first few days that you're going to spend here before you go to your school and start teaching. This slide just introduces some of the contacts that you could get in touch with if you have any questions during this online orientation phase. The first person you should get in touch with is your specialist from the Foreign Teachers Management team. This is most likely the person who shared these videos with you and should have been assigned to you by now. Next, you could indeed get in touch with your recruiter who you've been talking to up until this point. So feel free to still contact them if you're having trouble, any questions that perhaps aren't getting answered elsewhere. And if you need to escalate further than that, then you can consider the manager of the Foreign Teachers Management team, which is Chloe Jung. This is her email address here, and this is her WeChat account. And she is the manager for the specialists. So if you have any trouble there, you can escalate to her. Alternatively, as I'm the presenter of these videos, if you have any problems, any questions for me, please feel free to contact me. This is my email address and my WeChat ID. Okay, that's the end of this first video. Up next, we're going to be talking about Foreign Teachers Management System.